I feel massively underqualified standing here, so bear with me. Basically, I'm a Master of Wine, as Manny mentioned. I studied for 7 years to become a Master of Wine, and in reference to Paul saying quite rightly that you don't want to imbibe too much wine because you can actually diffuse some of the connections in your brain. A lot of my time was spent spitting wine out because you can take as much from tasting wine through spitting it out as you can through absorbing it and swallowing it. Obviously, of an evening with friends to enjoy a lovely glass of wine is definitely a good thing to do. Wine will always be in my attention, and I think that's why I chose to study wine. I always loved food, I love wine, and I love my senses. It's only recently through the study that I've discovered that my nose has absorbed so much information. And a lot of people say to me, how can you taste a wine and decide where it's from, what vintage it's from, what grape variety it is, and tell all those factors? And that's because I trained my brain. Some of you might be marathon runners or like yoga or, just enjoy tasting different foods or love wine. But all of us, through repetition and practice, are gaining connections in our brain, I think. I'm no neuroscientist, so, but from what I can tell, I love it. I have 4 boys. 2 of them are in their 20s, one's a teenager, and one's an 8-year-old. And all of them are terrified of my nose. 2 of them have gone through a period of smoking, but I pick it up even if they smoked 3 hours ago. So, I'm like the bloodhound in the house. And that is just through my Master of Wine, training. So this is what I had to do to become a Master of Wine. This is just the tasting side. The theory side involves the business of wine, the production of wine, the vineyards, and contemporary issues. And actually, as a nod to Louise's talk, there was a question in 2016 in the Master of Wine exam whether wine is an art or a science. And I do think that it bridges the gap, because when you have a look at some of the beautiful photos I'm going to show you, it awakens your senses. You travel, you create memories, and yet there's a lot of science into the production of very good wine. So there you go. Okay, so having a look at what I had to do. This is just an example of paper 1. In the tasting, you get 12 wines blind. You're given sort of leading questions so that you have some idea where they come from. So this is where, creating knowledge from theory helps the sense of smell connect to the answer, if you like. We did 36 wines over 3 days. If you fail one of those papers, they're in sets of 12, you fail the whole exam. But you have to look at the origin, the variety, the winemaking, the age, and the quality. The nose is the leader to a lot of that. It's really tough on some people who either lost their sense of smell in COVID for a short time, or a famous winemaker from Chablis, his daughter has never had a sense of smell. And she came to stay with us in the summer last year, and I almost think of that as a disability, knowing what I know you can discover through your sense of smell. During COVID, I was terrified. There were a lot of Masters of Wine who did lose their sense of smell, but they've all got it back again, because it is our lives. It is what drives us to understand what is going on in the glass, even if it's to tell you if the wine is faulty or not. Here is a trip. We were in Greece. The great thing about being a Master of Wine is you get invited to go on these tasting trips with others who enjoy the same product. You can see it's not, we're not jovially going around drinking and getting drunk. We're actually studying the wines and taking notes and looking at the structure and literal clues. And what's interesting about the Masters of Wine is they say that tasting wine is like being a detective. You're looking at the clues and you're trying to come away with the answer. So it's like a game. Now I've passed the exam, but when I was studying, it was no game. So it's not about liking the wine, it's about understanding the wine. And actually, that was interesting in Manny's discussion. about memory recognition. And I'm hoping that my piriform cortex is very strong, because I had to train myself not to use my opinion. So, for example, I really dislike Prosecco. I don't really like Pinot Grigio. There are certain styles of wine as I get older, heavier reds, that are not to my taste. But as a wine expert, I have to just learn to evaluate whether they're good or oh, brilliant, I've got notes here. Thank you. If they're good, or if they are not good, and whether I can recommend them to specific people or not. So that is part of my job. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to move that forward. Is that going? Oh, sorry, I'm going. There we go. Okay, so tasting through hundreds of wines is something that I've done. The postman used to come to the house and see me sitting in the kitchen tasting wines at 9 in the morning. It is the best time to taste wine, by the way, because all your senses are more alert when you're hungry and early in the morning. During the day, obviously, your sense of smell, your sense of taste becomes more sort of resigned to coffee and food and things like that. So you have to recognize when's a good time to taste. I'm going to move on to this one. There we go. So looking at putting it all together, I was mentioning joining the dots, if you like. So it relies on a chain of events. You smell, your memory is activated, you come to a decision, and then confidence is key. In the Master of Wine exam, even if you get it wrong, confidence is key. So you tend to funnel. But what is fundamental to getting it right and passing the exam is putting down your senses on the paper, what you've picked up. So you might smell lemon, you might smell mineral, you might smell a number of different sort of descriptors and categories that evoke a memory, and then you can put that into your answer. And funneling is how I passed, because sometimes you're not going to get the identification right. But if you have a cool climate, I'll talk you through it. If you have a cool climate Chardonnay, say Chablis, for example, you have it in your glass in front of you. You taste it, you smell it first, and you get lemon and you get apple and you get cool climate things. If it was from a warm climate, you would get exotic peach and pineapple and warmer, sort of richer fruit notes. With that, you've got the smell, and then you go onto your palate and you go for your senses. So you're going to go for your salivary glands next with acidity. So acidity, I teach wine tasting as well, and a lot of people new to wine tasting don't have confidence in their senses. And it is fascinating to teach, because by the end of a 3-day course, they have this new learned skill that they can actually decipher where wines come from, even after 3 days, even after 1 day of learning how to read your senses, which is really relevant when we're talking about how we are losing those skills slightly now. And I was thinking about it with another point someone made, that, we all rely on our phones, and it was the London taxi thought that, I never know how to go anywhere without Google Maps. So from now on, I'm going to get lost more. So I teach these students how to taste. So the saliva glands, next time you're drinking something acidic, open your mouth when it's left your mouth and think about how your saliva is treating your mouth. If you start to dribble like a toddler, it's highly acidic, which generally means, in terms of wine, that it's from a cooler climate, because acidity in the grape goes down as the grape ripens. So sugars go up and acidity goes down. And that means you have a higher alcohol, lower acid wine from a hot climate, and a lower alcohol, higher acid wine from a cool climate. So that is knowledge giving you the conclusion of where the wine is coming from. So you can see where I'm going with tasting wine allows you to think like a detective, and it can be fun. I am a wine nerd, but it can be fun. And then as well, alcohol. Alcohol, you feel it here. You feel it, even if you're not swallowing the wine, you do get a warming sensation at the base of your throat. So again, that's telling you if it's warm, it's a warmer climate. So with this Chablis we're tasting, we're not getting that. We're just getting the high acidity. We're getting the green fruits, which are cooler climate. And then there's no oak. So if we have a look at this, we have an oak barrel here. Oak barrels are used to add texture to a wine, but new oak barrels gives you notes of vanilla through some of the sort of chemical exchanges with the wine that happen during fermentation or after fermentation. So depending on whether the oak is new or old, you're going to feel that in the wine. And that, again, takes you to quality or to where the wine is produced. So these are barrels in Burgundy. So a high proportion would be new, so they would give you vanilla on the nose or on the palate. And again, that's taking you and teaching you that. But with the Chablis, generally you do not get any new oak. So if you have no new oak, again, your little brain is going, in my theory I learned, it's pointing me away from the Southern Burgundy, it's pointing me towards Chablis. So this is how it works, and it's by literally translating the language of wine and what's in the glass and putting it on paper. I'm crap at any languages, but I can translate wine. And I'm proud of that. So, although I would like to be good at French because that would really help when I go there. Another, wine, a lot of people sort of think that wine is just produced from one grape variety or just literally fermented, bottled, and sold. Here you can see Bruce Jack, who's a South African winemaker, blending different varieties or just different vineyards to produce a style that he wants to make in his, I think that was for his Catalan red, which is an easy drinking style. And he knew what his customers wanted. So literally you sit there with all these different parcels and blend them until we find what we like. It was a fun exercise. We had a good lunch afterwards too. I talked about wine and the senses, so associations and memory. It does use the whole brain. I'm going to Burgundy next week. I'm really looking forward to it. I will eat delicious food, I will drink delicious wines, and I will meet really interesting people who have been producing wines through their family for generations. I actually get emotional when I think about the connections that wine has given me in life and the connections that we all have to the past through wine. I know it's demonized as an alcohol now, but it is an amazing part of history. And Jesus turned water into wine, so what can you say? Looking at the sight, the feel, the texture, I gave you, that's a picture there of a top Burgundy domain, which has millions poured into it, so it's an extreme end, but everything is perfect and beautiful, and you walk in and it's a sensory experience. They put that window there to highlight the tree, and all this adds, when you go into the cellar, to how you're going to enjoy that wine. If you just pick that bottle up and you have no idea where it came from, you're not going to taste it in the same way. So that is a lot of the reason why collectors are happy to part with thousands and thousands of euros for specific cases of wine, because they've had that experience and it's created that memory and made them resonate with it a lot more than just buying a bottle on a shelf. It's very clever, really. And in the back, that's a Margaux estate that's been taken over actually by a Chinese person, but they've brought very much the sort of the holistic, the earth and the planetary system into the cellar, because they work in the vineyards using the lunar cycle in biodynamics. And that's something as well that, again, pulls nature towards you in the production of wine. Wine is a huge industry, and they use an awful lot of methods to produce the best wine in the world. I put that very badly, but I think you can get what I mean. So again, talking about the senses, this is a beautiful vineyard in South Africa. I do travel all over the world to taste and enjoy wine and come back and sell it. So it's not a bad life. Studying to be a Master of Wine took away 7 years of my life, but I made huge connections in that. And it was a lot of hard work. Everyone's like, yeah, right, Harriet. It was a lot of hard work. But I'm just hoping that side of my brain will continue to grow and continue to connect the dots, if you like. I forget my children's names. I'm very bad on facial recognition. But give me a wine and I'll tell you what it is. So thank you very much.